Hi, friend. Welcome to another episode of In the Unfolding of Becoming. I'm your host, Erica. Today, I'm joined by April. April, welcome.
Hi, Erica. Super excited to be here.
So glad to have you. For those of you who are in San Francisco, we've been on this lucky streak where we've been having a lot of sun and a lot of warm weather after a lot of rain. I don't know about you, but the sun makes me feel energized and positive and so ready to go.
It's a gorgeous day. I'm ready to go.
April, on this podcast, we talk a lot about the unfolding of becoming. And I think that when we're becoming, it's never really a job that's ended until probably we complete this life cycle in this human body. But there are chapters that we definitely arrive in, and there are chapters that we may find ourselves in the middle of. When we talk about the unfolding, the way I define that is that middle stage of where we've started a new transition or a new chapter in our lives and haven't quite yet gotten to the arrival phase, but we're in that in between phase. I like to start off by just asking our guests on the podcast, what does unfolding mean to you?
I love this question because it it means so many things. I think we are always unfolding. And to your point, we go through these chapters in life and we're just unfolding to the next thing. So many times you hear people talk about, the journey and the destination. And I think there's destination seekers and I think there's journey people. And I'm finding that I'm more and more of a journey people. I think that unfolding is really starting to acknowledge the journey, whatever that looks like. To your point, you always say it's messy sometimes in the middle. It really can be. And so for me, I'm really glad that you're acknowledging this because I don't think enough people talk about the unfolding. We just sit around and talk about the end state or the past or where we were, but where are we right now in this unfolding?
Where are we in the present moment?
Yes.
And how are we being and who are we being?
Yes.
Instead of focusing on the action, it's the state of being.
Yeah.
You've summed it up really beautifully. I'm curious, what kind of unfolding are you currently in this chapter in your life?
This is such a good one. So for me, I am really focusing on being centered and using being centered and calm as my power source. And we'll get into it a little bit here, but I am a very ambitious, driven person. And I used to think that the only way to be driven and to achieve what it is that you want to achieve came with go get 'em, drive, push, press, all of that. And there's another way. There's another way to still be powerful and ambitious and have peace and be centered. And I am learning that every single day.
I can definitely attest to April being very ambitious and very much a go-getter. And also that resonates with me on a professional level because I also share being on this timeline of what's the next thing, how do I approach the next level, and there's nothing wrong with that. There's no shame in that. And also, it puts a certain pressure on myself to do. And when I hear you talking about there's a different way, I can guess that it's going to be about being. But I'm really curious when you say there's a different way to achieve that. Tell us. I want to know. I feel like I'm still in the process of learning that I can achieve all of these things, not necessarily through action. Inspired action is always a good thing.
Absolutely.
And also being is as important. So share a little more.
So I think that when we think about being ambitious, it's, to your point, always has a goal, right? There's something you're trying to get to. I think a lot of us were programmed, especially in corporate America, in order to get to that, you really got to grind. Like the grind is what it was all about. You got to go, you got to go after it. You got to work, 12, 14-hour days. And not to get into gender specifics, but I think especially as women, and I'm in the tech world, you're in the finance world, that those are more male-dominated industries. We sometimes have been taught that we have to push harder. And I can remember earlier in my career, there would be nights where all of my colleagues would go home, especially my male colleagues, and I would be still at the office. I just wanted to get a little bit more done just to get ahead. And it served me well for a long time. It really did. But it was at a sacrifice and cost of my well-being. I was working 18-hour days, 20-hour days. And at the age of 35, I'm 45 now, I had a mini stroke because I was working and pressing and pushing so hard.
And I actually didn't know this. I learned that very recently. That's scary.
So scary, so scary. I remember it very clearly. I had just moved to California for a job in big tech as a contractor. And there was some sort of escalation at work that we genuinely were working 20-hour days. We had a virtual war room set up, and I was helping drive fixing this issue that happened. And it was crazy. And that was going on for like 2 weeks straight, not sustainable. And I felt all of this like weird tingling happening in my arm. And I was short of breath, and my words suddenly weren't coming out clear. The person that was with me at the time noticed and was like, are you doing okay? I think you need to take a break. And so I sat down and took a break, took a breath, and I noticed in the days that followed, things were just off. I felt like I couldn't put words together. I was like, oh, I'm just tired, all of that. Well, I didn't go to the doctor at the time.
Wow.
But yeah, I just kept pushing through because, again, that's what we're taught in programs is you just got to push through, you got to get the mission done. But then when I finally went to my doctor not too long after that and described what had happened and said, hey, I'm feeling this way. And what I noticed was my speech pattern was strange. And I would know that I'd want to say these words, but then I would say the wrong word. I'd flip words around and I would just play it off and make a joke about it. Like, oh, I just fumbled over my words. But he's like, oh my God, they did brain scans, all the things, that I had a mini stroke. And I was like, holy smokes. So that got my attention, right?
Wow. I can relate to the concept of you need to push through. I agree that it is a gender thing in some cases where women are taught to carry a lot. You go to work, you're by default a lot of times the caretaker in a family. And also in America in general, there's this drive to do what you need to do to accomplish the American dream at any cost, right? I'm really curious to know when you did go to the doctor and found out, oh, hey, I actually had a mini stroke. How did you feel and how did that land in terms of having an oh shit moment? A moment of maybe I do need to slow down. How was that experience for you?
At the time, I didn't understand that it was something that I had, in a sense, done to myself by being in that role and choosing that career path and choosing that job. I blamed external circumstances. I remember feeling scared for sure, but also angry. I was angry at the company. Well, they got me doing this, and this wouldn't have happened if they had put all this pressure on me and my team. I found myself externally blaming, and it wasn't until 5 years later that I finally started on the path of getting it together and changing that. What I did do was, instead of really focusing on myself more or trying to care for myself, I did a little bit more in terms of not work as many hours, but I started looking for another job instead. That's how I handled it. I didn't at the time realize that there was another way to take care of myself.
And let me guess, the other job that you ended up transitioning to was just as fast paced.
It was the exact same pattern. I mean, it could have been pretty much the same company. It was another contracting firm serving as more of a consultant type role. Very similar, building out a brand new team, doing something nobody had ever done before, which I like. I'm a builder. I like to create, and I've built teams over the years, and it's fun. I get joy out of it. And it was absolutely the same scenario. And that one fortunately ended for me because it got to the point where with that particular company, and I'll talk a little bit about it because that company actually no longer exists. They were doing some pretty shady stuff up at the top in terms of the way in which they were lying to the clients, and they were cooking the books and not doing great things. When I pushed back on their way in which they were handling things with the client, and I was the client-facing person at the time. I was in with the client day in and day out. I was that representative, but also that punching bag. for the client. And my company did not like my pushback. Like, well, we need to present a united front, and this is when the client needs to learn that we have the power. And I didn't like that attitude, Erica. I pushed back on them internally, and they eventually said, well, we need to part ways for business reasons. It was the same situation. I was finding myself working again, 18-hour days, trying to drive the mission, trying to do all the things. And I just was like, all right, fine, forget it, whatever. And I was very frustrated.
I think you just hit something very important, April. We've talked about the labor part of it, right? The drive and the exhaustion that comes with working 18 hours a day. But then you also just spoke about the emotional labor, where you were working in this particular environment in one that did not align with your value system.
Right.
And that's a part that I think also gets overlooked when you're talking about working really long hours. Yeah, there's the physical aspect of it, but there's also the emotional turmoil of it. And sometimes the emotional weighs even more heavy
right.
than the physical
Right.
labor of doing the work. What is it that turned a light bulb for you? And you're like, you know what? This isn't an external change. It isn't something that I need to go to the outside to change. It isn't another job. It isn't another company. It isn't another title, but it's in here. It's within me that I need to go through an unfolding, that I need to go through a transition. What was that pivot for you?
For me, it was when I was having challenges in my relationship, my personal relationship. The work-life balance that I didn't have was flowing into my marriage, and it was really not great. My husband never saw me. I never saw him. I was working all the time, and I kept telling myself it's because I'm building a better life for us. He had dreams and ambitions, and I was trying to support his dreams and ambitions. He was also trying to be supportive of me, but I would literally come home and fall asleep on the couch in my work clothes. But what got my attention was when we felt it was time to part ways, he and I. And he started actually going to therapy, and I refused at the time. And I was having these nightmares, like absolute crazy nightmares. And I was having panic attacks and all of these things. That got my attention. So I did go to my doctor, and they put me on an antidepressant, which was helpful. That kind of helped stabilize and regulate my nervous system. And then COVID hit, and we went through the divorce process, and there was a lot of stress there. I finally went to therapy, and I did it through one of the apps. And then it was great. And I did 2 years of essentially daily therapy, learning tools to calm myself down, because I just felt like there were all these thoughts in my head all the time and I didn't know what was going on. She really, really, really helped me just learn self-regulation. And in fact, we got to the point, so I did 2 years of intensive therapy with her. And she helped me get through my divorce. She helped me get through navigating other things that were going on in my career. But what was so great about it is she was actually one of those therapists that told me I no longer needed therapy. She referred me to a coach who was specialized in how to be in relationship with other humans. So you think about, a lot of times when we say relationship, a lot of times we go to romantic relationships, right? But we're always in relationship with other humans. So I learned how to be in relationship with other humans. And that was really helpful. And at that time then, I also changed careers, and I got in at a company, instead of as a contractor, a full-time employee, that actually had really good health benefits as well, and mindfulness practices kind of built in, big tech. So they even have meditation rooms on campus. And so what really shifted for me was, thank God, going through the therapy, starting to work with the coach, and then it all just started to unfold. It's unbelievable. Once you kind of start to peel back that layer, that was such a great unfolding phase. A friend introduced me to a spiritual teacher and said, oh, you need to read this book. So I read that book, and I was like, oh my gosh, this is amazing. I read it in a whole weekend. It was just unbelievable. And this particular unfolding was really exciting because I kept untapping something else and untapping something else and untapping something else. And I noticed as I changed inwardly, I also started to change outwardly. Back when I was telling you the story of when I had the mini stroke and all those things, I was also very overweight. I was, at one point in my life, I was up to 220 pounds. I'm almost like 70 pounds lighter today, if not more. Yeah.
That's great. Congratulations to you. And I want to get to the title of that book that you read. That was so impactful. And I also want to talk about your mindfulness and meditation because I know that that's also been a journey for you.
Yes.
But before we get to those two things, I'm really curious. You mentioned that you were very hesitant to go to therapy, that you refused.
Yes.
And I know that you're not the only one out there who's battled with that resistance. I'm curious to know why you felt that way.
Such a good question. I believe it was the way a lot of us grew up. It was a stigma. You don't need therapy. You're broken if you're going to therapy. What's that really going to do for you? What's that really going to solve? I had it in my mind that therapy meant you were going to admit defeat and you were broken. You were sick.
When I hear you, it reminds me of pull yourself up from your bootstraps. That whole idea of keep doing it, keep driving forward,
Push
and
through.
do it yourself. You have to show your worth by being able to do this on your own.
That's it. That's it. Nailed it on the head. Yeah.
I would just say for you, friend, the listener, if you're considering therapy, I have found that going to therapy actually requires more strength because it requires a lot of vulnerability and a lot of openness. Therapy is not for the weak.
You are confronting your shadows. You're looking back on childhood traumas. We all have them, big T's and little T's. And you are really doing the work.
If you're intentional about doing therapy, it's a sign of strength,
100%,
not a sign of
100%.
weakness.
Yeah, because otherwise it's just, I think for me, when I look back on that version of myself, she was avoidant. She was avoiding it. Yeah, she was afraid of what she would see.
And doing the work is exactly that. It's work.
Yeah.
And it's a lot easier oftentimes and more comfortable.
With a therapy partner. Yeah.
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 Yeah. But a lot of people choose not to do the work because it's easier not to do the work.
It is. You think it's easier, but you don't realize what you're
losing out on.
and what you're losing out on. Because now that I'm on this side of the fence, having done that work, and again, there's work we do every single day, and we still keep going. But boy, I'm so glad I did it. I'm so glad that I did that therapy.
Yeah.
And I would honestly say to anybody, like you said, the friends that are listening, please, if you're considering it, try out one of the apps. There's some really good ones out there. Do your research, talk to your doctor. It's really worth it. And I really liked, for me, because I'm someone that processes very internally, and I don't always do well speaking how I'm feeling, but I do well writing how I'm feeling. For me, on the apps, it was great because I had 3 different options. I could do what I would call interactive journaling. I would type out all of my frustrations and what I was feeling and getting it out, journaling it out to her, and then waiting patiently for her to respond. Or we would do audio messages back and forth if I did feel that I needed to speak about it, because it's 2 different things, writing and speaking. They're 2 very different things. And I knew I wasn't the kind of person that was going to get in a car, especially during COVID, and sit somewhere in an office all masked up and tell essentially some stranger what was going on with me.
All very good points, April. And what I would also add is therapy is pricey. Expense is a barrier for you. There are some nonprofit organizations that can help with getting access to therapy. I'm happy if you direct message me to explore options with you. Don't let that be a barrier to growing into an aligned self and doing the work. So April, let's go back to that book. What is the book?
Okay, it's called The Universe Has Your Back by Gabrielle Bernstein. Some of you may have heard of her. That was really my first dip into my spirituality and finding out that we are meant to be abundant and we are meant to live an abundant life. We are meant to flow from a place of ease and grace. And again, you can still be dynamic. You can still be powerful. You can still have ambitions, but it doesn't need to come from that place of grit and grind. It can come from ease and flow. And it's incredible. It's absolutely incredible. That book was absolutely life-changing. One of my friends had recommended it to me. And then from there, again, it unfolded. I learned transcendental meditation, but right prior to that, I learned tapping, which is incredible. So I would say a lot of times people say, oh, I hear it a lot. They go, oh, I can't sit still. Oh, I can't empty my mind. And meditation is actually not about that, I learned. But one really great entryway into doing it, and this is another app you can get, it's called the Tapping Solution. Highly recommend. I think they're also, I believe, a nonprofit organization. You tap on certain points of your body. For someone who's active and energized and probably living in a state of anxiety, you can consider tapping because you're actually interacting with your body. And you'll tap on the side of your wrist right here. I don't know if that picks up on the mic or not. And then you'll tap on different points of your body. And these are all to calm your nervous system down on top of your chest. Just tapping that actually disrupts the energy that's being held there and helps it dissipate. Tapping was really great. And you say little affirmations while you're doing it, like, I am feeling frustrated and I am upset at my colleague. And it is okay to feel this way. And I think it's so important to acknowledge that and name those feelings. I think on one of your other episodes, you talked about naming the feeling. So important.
Name it to tame it.
That really resonated with me because that's something that I had learned from my therapist, was to name it.
For those of us who are either beginners or intermediate when it comes to meditation, how does meditation help you step into that flow and ease state that you describe, which sounds absolutely lovely?
Well, it gets you to a different frequency. Nikola Tesla always talked about energy, frequency, and vibration. And scientifically, it's shown that our universe, our world is made up of energy, frequency, and vibration. And so you need to shift your energy. In order to do that, you need to raise your vibration to then get on a different frequency. And meditation really helps with that, because what it does is it brings you back to the present moment. And you can do that in a variety of ways. You can focus on your breath. You can look at something across the room. You can repeat a mantra or an affirmation to yourself. And thoughts are going to come up because that's what they do. That's what thoughts are designed to do. Is they're designed to run through your brain. And that's okay. Let them do their thing. Studies have shown, and what they teach you in transcendental meditation is that the thoughts will almost, in a sense, at first, as you set an intention to do your meditation practice, they start to go really, really crazy because they feel threatened in a sense. Like, wait, what are you doing to me? I want to be here. I want to be here. So in transcendental meditation, they teach you a mantra, and you just repeat it inwardly to yourself. And one of them that people use is so hum. And it's Sanskrit for, I can't remember exactly what it stands for, but it's something like I am here, or somebody out there is going like, I know exactly what it means. But you just repeat that and you anchor to that. And so you close your eyes, you take a deep breath, and you just repeat so hum. And then your thoughts are going to come up. And that's okay. As soon as you remember and you go off on your little path with your thoughts, you can come back to that mantra, so hum. And if you do that for 10 minutes, they've done tons of studies on this. It shows your heart rate drops, your nervous system settles, everything just becomes more calm. And then from there, you can go about your day, you can operate from a different place.
You recently went on a meditation retreat, didn't you?
I did.
Can you speak a little bit about your experience?
Yeah, it was great. This one was what they call a silent retreat. And I've done meditation and yoga type retreats before. But this one was interesting because it was silent. And the teacher was speaking, but you yourself were asked to be silent the entire time. It was 3 days. It was in the Pacific Northwest. It was absolutely beautiful. And what that does is it really, really gives you an opportunity to be with yourself. And there's other students there, but you're encouraged to not interact with each other. Like, just be aware that there's other humans around you. In fact, we all had our eyes downward as we were moving about. If we were walking by each other in the hallway, or if we were going to lunch or anything along those lines. And it just really gave you the opportunity to be with others, but mostly be with yourself in silence. For me, it was very magical. Afterwards, we all shared what our experience was like. For me, it was just a beautiful moment of peace after a few months of very busy schedule. And I had purposely scheduled it that way so that I could have that time to be with just myself. It was amazing.
I'm so happy that you got to experience that. I'll be honest, I don't know that I could for 3 days, not say a single word. That would be a challenge for me. For other friends who are listening and they're at the beginning of their journey, what would you recommend in terms of starting a practice that they can really stick to?
I think it's really about the intention that you set. Not everything is going to be for everyone. A silent retreat might not be for you, but maybe a more interactive one with yoga and sound baths might be more something that calls to you. It's like if you're house hunting and you get that feeling when you know, you'll get that feeling. You'll know if this is for you. But I encourage people to try out different types of meditation practices. There's so many out there. And again, you can just Google it. You can come to breath work. There's the silent meditation retreats. Some people really find harmony and peace in going to retreats because they have instructions from a teacher. Just kind of try it out. But again, I would start with tapping. For a lot of people, I recommend that, especially if you're feeling anxiety all the time. Try tapping. That would be one that I would recommend for people to start.
And there are a lot of great YouTube videos on tapping that people can search for. Let's bring it back to your unfolding and to your story and where you are presently. Where are you in this transition from grit and drive to one of being in flow?
This is great. I'm definitely in the middle for sure. I do get activated still, and that's absolutely okay. But I would say if I had to put a number on it, previously in all of the journey that I described to you, that version of April, she was living 80% of the time in anxiety, 90% of the time in anxiety, and maybe 10% in present moment. And now this version of April, it's flipped. 80-90% of the time, I'm in ease and flow, I'm present, and then maybe that 10 to 20% in anxiety. That's where we are now, and it's an awesome place to be, but it takes consistency to stay there, and it takes practice. I recently transitioned into a new role that does allow me the opportunity to practice this and being centered as my new driven. There's opportunities all the time to really practice responding, not reacting. I think you talked about that in one of your previous episodes as well. It's okay. I get annoyed, but I name that. And it's okay. I'm annoyed. All right. Now, how am I going to actually move through this and get to a point of responding?
April, let's get a little real. When we're in the unfolding and we're in the middle, there are going to be things that come up and we're not always going to be perfect. And like you said, that is okay. It's like that 80-20 rule. 80%, we're trying our best. And that 20% is really just going to be a learning opportunity and a practice. Let's get real and let's talk about an instance where you didn't show up in the best way that you felt that you could have, but it was practice because you're in the middle of it.
Oh, it was yesterday, actually, Erica. This is how in the middle of this we are. Yesterday, I was on a conference call with my colleagues, and we have a daily stand-up every day at 8:30 in the morning. And I had actually been on conference calls since 7 o'clock in the morning. Since 6 o'clock in the morning, because I was doing some stuff with my nonprofit organization, and then I rolled.
Yes, she does have also a nonprofit organization.
So we had our bi-weekly sync there, and then I moved straight into partner calls with my partners, and then I hopped on the daily stand-up. So in all of that, because I was being present, not multitasking, doing the things that I needed to do at those scheduled times, I had missed a whole slew of pings that had come through, instant messages for those of you that remember what that is. When I got to that 8:30 meeting, I was made aware at that moment in time of a deadline that needed to be done that had been put on the team at 7 a.m. But again, I missed it, and it needed to be done by 9 a.m. I instantly felt this huge rush. My heart was pounding. I was furious. I was absolutely furious. I was like, are you kidding me? I had 30 minutes to get this done, and nothing had been started. And yes, I have team members that can support, but one of my team members was on a plane, one of my team members was on PTO, and one of my team members was not in the chat group that the directive had come through. And I'm like, you've got to be freaking kidding me. So the guy that delivered the message is essentially my boss's right-hand man. And he was just, bless his heart, just delivering the message that, hey, we need to get this done. Here's the data source for it. And I was spun up. I was so furious about this. And I'm like, okay, so by God, this has to be done, in the next 15 minutes. All right, sounds good. And when I get frustrated, I get very sarcastic. But I just felt myself. It was there. I was like, forget it. I'm angry. I'm going to be angry. This is what we're going to do. Accepting it. And
You embraced that that's where you were.
I embraced it. That's what was happening. And unfortunately, my colleagues got to take the brunt of it. That wasn't fair. I kind of took it out on the guy that was just, shoot the messenger, right? Bless his heart. So I said, all right, fine. Sounds good. Well, I'm going to go ahead and get off this call then so that I can go get this damn deadline done that's due in 15 minutes, and literally hung up on the call. And somebody, I think, was in the middle of talking, and I just didn't, at that moment in time, didn't even care. Erica, I'm mad. I'm just like, this is insane. And I want to be mad, but I also need to get this done. So being on this call is a waste of my time. And I think it was actually a smart move that I dropped from that call, because it would have been completely pointless to continue to stay through that call. And then when would I have gotten the work done?
But that's real, right? That's
Yeah.
real, because when we talk about the unfolding, we can sit here and we can talk about the tools and we can talk about the pretty growth that occurs. But this is also the growth. This is also what happens when you're going through the unfolding. There are going to be times where you're not 100% center, or you're not composed, or whatever your transition is. Apply that to whatever you're going through in your unfolding. That's the real truth, because we are humans and we are complex, and we are on a journey that doesn't ever fully end until we leave our body.
It's absolutely true. Here's what I did. An old version of me would have let that whole incident carry throughout the rest of the day. And I think a lot of us do that, right? You get up in the morning and you stub your toe and you spill the coffee and you can't find your keys, and you're on that frequency.
My
right?
day is ruined.
My day is ruined. Then your day has to continue that way, because you're now bringing that energy in, and your brain is looking for more and more things that say, oh, I'm having a horrible day. I could have let that continue throughout the day, but instead what I did was, obviously I had this deadline that had to get done. So we, as quickly as we could, gathered as much information as we could for that particular directive. And then I purposefully did not join the next call that I was supposed to then be on. I just said, hey guys, can't make it, because I needed to recenter. Old me would have pushed through, powered through all of that. But it was one of those calls where they always take really great notes, and I knew I could get caught up offline and other people would be on the call and I could catch up. It wasn't something critical that I needed to be on. I did what I needed to do and I stepped away. Now, fortunately, yesterday I was working from home, so I was able to go lie down and just do some deep breathing, put on a meditation. I use the Insight Timer app. Highly recommend that one as well for people. And I didn't even do very long. I just did a 10-minute reset. There's one that I like to go to all the time. It's called Rewrite Your Reality. That's like 8 minutes. And she has binaural beats in it, and it has you visualize the version of yourself that you want to be. Obviously, I did not want to be that version of myself where I'm snipping at coworkers and hanging up on conference calls and essentially telling people to take a hike. So I'm like, all right, well, what version of me do I want to carry for the rest of the day, right? And so I did that, and it really was a complete reset, 180-degree shift. So 10 minutes, stepped away, came back, apologized to the colleague, let my boss know that, hey, I snipped off on your right-hand man, by the way. Also, we need to fix how we handle these last-minute objectives. So trying to also fix the underlying thing as well. But I don't think I would have been able to do that and come to that clarity without that practice.
I love that, because essentially what you did was you gave yourself permission to take 10 minutes out of a day that was demanding a lot from you, that was demanding that you perform, right? You had a deadline that you had to get to, and you recognized the importance of it, but you also were able to prioritize yourself, to prioritize that you needed 10 minutes to recalibrate in order to be the best you for you and for everybody around you, including your colleagues. Oftentimes, we don't give ourselves that permission.
That's
so
true.
We don't say, you know what? I'm losing my mind right now. I just need 10 minutes. And sure, there might be days where it might be a little bit harder for a friend as you're listening, where you're like, okay, but maybe I'm a mom. But think about it this way. For your own safety and your own well-being, even taking a 5-minute walk or a 5-minute pause is so essential for you to continue to being present for yourself and for whatever it is that you're doing and those that you're impacting around you.
Absolutely, Erica. I'm so glad you brought that up too. Taking that time for yourself is so critical. You have to put yourself first. And it's for people that maybe grew up as caretakers or you were programmed to always be the one that gives to everyone else. And so many people in this world are givers, and myself included. Give to yourself too. You have to give to yourself too. And I'll tell you, the minimum to get your nervous system to calm down is 3 minutes. That's it. It's 3 minutes. They say if you can settle for 3 minutes and do something intentional, whether it's breath work, if you can do that for even 3 minutes, again, you'll shift frequencies.
And what I want to say is you are worth 3 minutes.
Absolutely.
You got to pour your cup first.
You do.
April, it sounds like your unfolding is still in transit, but it looks like it's one where even when there are moments of learning and opportunity, you're recalibrating a lot faster than perhaps the old you.
Yeah, absolutely. It's night and day difference. It almost has become subconscious in a way. So I'll find myself taking deep breaths. Like my body will naturally now take deep breaths when it's starting to get activated, recognizing that I need that regulation.
You've trained it to be the default mode when you're activated, which is amazing.
Yes. And that takes me to something I wanted to share with you when we talk about being centered and center being the power is I have an acronym and it's for center. When you are feeling reactive, you are feeling activated in any sense of way, just remember center, right? The first thing we do is check in. You're observing what's happening in your body and mind. Something is happening right now, whatever that is. And oftentimes the body feels it, right? Before we can even name it.
Absolutely.
Yeah. You feel that pit in your stomach. Everybody, I think, can relate to that. Your heart starts beating, all of those things. Your body knows. So check in. What's happening right now? And then to the body, engage the body. That's the E. Engage the body. Put your hand on your heart or start the tapping method. Somehow engage with your body. Put your feet on the ground. Ground yourself. Something like that. Interact with your body because that's telling your body then that you're safe. Name the feeling. That's the end. Acknowledge it. I feel annoyed. I feel angry. I feel activated. Whatever it is. Take a breath. That's the T. Take a breath. Breathe in for 4, out for 6. Do the box breathing. Anything. Just take a breath. Then expand your perspective. Remind yourself that you have space and choice. Okay? And you don't have to react immediately. And then the last one is R. For center is respond intentionally. Now you can act from clarity. And I'm explaining this, and it took me a little bit to explain it here, maybe 30, 40 seconds, but you can do all of that relatively quickly. Ooh, I'm activated, hand on heart. Okay, it's okay to feel this way. All right, I feel annoyed. And then how I could have reacted on that call was, hey, thanks for letting us know. Because I've only got 15 minutes, I'm going to go ahead and drop now. If you guys need me for anything in that 15 minutes, unless it's more urgent than this, I could have responded a little bit better.
And you're able to recognize that because of all the growth that you've had during this unfolding.
I think so. I
Right?
think so. Yeah.
I love that acronym, and I think it's a very useful tool that people can very quickly turn to when they are activated. I just want to end on this question. What are you most looking forward to during your unfolding?
Just being with this version of me right now, as she's growing, as she's learning, I want to be here with her. I don't want to get to the next version of me just yet because I really like this version of me. I think as I'm unfolding, I just want to stay with her a little bit longer
Yeah.
and tell her I'm proud of her.
I'm very proud of her too, and I love this version of April.
Me too. She's great.
She is fantastic.
Oh, wasn't
She's
expecting to get a little
fantastic.
emotional. Okay, I feel emotional. And
Yeah.
I feel love, and I feel honored to be here with you today, Erica.
And we are honored to have you. It was lovely. And you've given us tools that we can really implement in our unfolding. Thank you, April. And for you, friend, who are listening, I look forward to continuing to meet you in your unfolding. Until the next one, take care.